There's a massive problem in the grappling world right now, and there is so much misinformation, confusion, and just BS around what supplements actually work to help enhance your athleticism as a grappler. I see way too many grapplers wasting their money on overhyped supplements that do nothing to actually help them lift heavy and roll hard. They're confused, frustrated, and just burnt out trying to figure out what supplements actually work and which ones are garbage. And if you've ever felt that, this podcast episode is for you. I'm gonna break down the exact supplement stack that I use every single week to help me get stronger, pack on slabs of muscle, improve my conditioning so that way I'm better equipped to lift heavy and roll hard. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Settlage Strength Podcast. I've been so fired up and excited to do this particular episode because supplements is a huge topic in the jiu-jitsu industry, and for better or for worse, I see grapplers. Even today, I was at jiu-jitsu just a couple hours ago, and I was talking to a bunch of grapplers about supplements. But I see a lot of grapplers that are confused, misinformed, and ultimately just really burned out with trying to figure out, okay, is this supplement legit? Is this garbage? I saw this guy on YouTube talk about this. Is that actually going to help my jiu-jitsu performance? So I figured the best thing that I could do is just come clean with all of the supplements that I take on a weekly basis to ultimately give you guys an inside look on how all of these things have helped me and the athletes that I coach enhance our athleticism on the mat. It's helped us get brutally strong, pack on slabs of muscle, enhance our conditioning, improve our recovery, and in a lot of ways, some of the supplements have really improved our overall health. So the main goal of this episode is not to prescribe you a specific supplement protocol, but just to give you an inside look at what my personal protocol is, and hopefully that can help you make some informed decisions on what you're going to do with your own supplement protocol. The last disclaimer I want to give on this podcast episode is a lot of these supplements are on the back end of a bunch of work I've already put in. I've been training for well over a decade on the mat and well over a decade off the mat. So I don't want to say that if you see certain results in my own performance, or if you see certain results in the performances of some of the athletes that I coach, that's not to say that these supplements are going to mimic the exact same results in your own athleticism. A lot of times supplements can give you a little bit of a boost, but the way I like to look at it is if we're working on a scale of 0 to 100% and we're trying to get as close as we can to 100%, supplements really are only going to give you like maybe 5% of a boost at the very most. But would you rather have that 5% boost take you from 50 to 55% or from 94% to 99% out of 100? For me personally, I like to build the foundation of athleticism and health first, and then start using some of these more specific supplements to help get that last 5% that gets me as close as possible to operating at 100%. So all that being said, wanted to make sure you guys knew that before we dive into it. So the way I'm breaking this down is that there's a bunch of different supplements that I take for different reasons. And so the way I like to personally categorize different supplements and other performance enhancing things, if you will, is how are we going to use it around training and how are we going to use it around recovery. When I start working with a new athlete, if I'm giving them a supplement protocol, I'm very specific and letting them know like, hey, this is what we're going to use before you train. And then this is what we're going to use after you train to help with recovery. We almost want to think of it as kind of like going in waves, right? When we create a training stimulus, we want to kind of supercharge that stimulus. So we want to take supplements that are going to help us get a better workout, supplements that are going to help us push a little bit harder or get a little bit more, squeeze a little bit more juice out of that workout so we can create a greater training stimulus. But it's not just about the training stimulus. You guys have heard me talk about this before. We also got to make sure that we're training hard and recovering harder. So the supplements that we use for recovery are really to make sure that as soon as that training session is done, we're able to maximize and speed up our recovery as fast as possible. So that being said, we're going to break this down into a couple categories. We got our pre-training supplements. We have our intra, or like in the middle of our workout supplements. We have our post-workout or post-jiu-jitsu supplements. And then we have some supplements that are more specific to just overall recovery, health optimization, and a little bit of cognitive stuff in there as well. So starting with my pre-training, whether that's lifting or jujitsu, my pre-training supplement stack, the first thing on here is pretty basic. It's just caffeine. Caffeine, I wouldn't say like I'm a caffeine fiend or anything, but I do love coffee. It's like my favorite thing in the world to get up early and dial in my double shot of espresso and get that on lock. So what's great about that is not only does it taste amazing, because I do pull pretty good shots of espresso, but there's some caffeine in there. Caffeine is great because it can act as a stimulant and it can help you have a little bit greater energy in your workout, have a little bit greater focus, a little bit more output, which is great. Obviously, there's a big downside to caffeine, and that is, well, it's a stimulant. So it can really mess up your sleep if you're taking caffeine too close to the time that you go to bed. For me personally, I'm very sensitive to caffeine, so I don't take a whole lot. One double shot of espresso has about 90 to 100 milligrams of caffeine in that one double shot of espresso. An energy drink has anywhere from 200 to 400. So most days of the week, I'm having 1 to 2 double shots of espresso, no more than that. If I have more than that, I get headaches and I can't sleep and just get super anxious, and it's not great. So I just limit myself to no more than 200 milligrams of caffeine per day. For me personally, I only take those before my morning training sessions. I don't take any caffeine within 10 to 12 hours of going to bed. So if I go to bed at 9 o'clock, that means that 9 a.m. is going to be my caffeine cutoff time. So I lift pretty early in the morning, so I get up, have my espresso first thing in the morning, then about 45 minutes to an hour later, I'm at the gym. And so I'm kind of, caffeine is digested, feeling pretty good, feeling alert, feeling awake, and all that stuff. I do my morning workout, and then I'll come home, eat breakfast, and usually with breakfast, I have one more double shot of espresso, or maybe after breakfast, as I start some work stuff, I'll have another coffee, and that's it for the day. The next supplement that I take pre-training is going to be electrolytes. Electrolytes are so important, especially, I think it's like 100 degrees outside out here in Sacramento. I was freaking sweating balls at jiu-jitsu today in the gi class. I rolled with this one guy at jiu-jitsu today, and it was a very, very last round. And we turned the fans on and we opened the doors, but still, you're wearing the gi. It's crazy hot in there. And I rolled with this guy, and I asked him, like, bro, you good? And he's a little bit newer. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm just wiped. And I was like, yeah, the heat, it's pretty intense. And one thing I suggested was like, hey, make sure you're staying hydrated. Make sure you're taking plenty of electrolytes, because hydration is not just about consuming enough water. It's about making sure you're getting in plenty of water and then have the proper electrolyte balance. 3 main electrolytes that I suggest people look into are sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Electrolytes are great because they're not only going to help regulate blood pressure and improve muscle function, but when you're dehydrated and you have low electrolytes, you're at a much greater risk of experiencing muscle cramps during training. And if you've ever tried to triangle somebody while you're dehydrated and you get a nasty hamstring cramp, it sucks. So all that being said, pre-training stack, caffeine, electrolytes. Now, we're going to get into some other stuff that I would not suggest for everybody, especially if you're brand new to training. Like if you're a training white belt, like you've only been working out for a few months, the next two things that I'm going to mention you probably don't need. You could just get the exact same results with just like proper nutrition, proper rest, properly structured training protocol. But the next supplement that I take before my workouts and before my jiu-jitsu training sessions is a form of injectable L-Carnitine. L-Carnitine is amazing, and it enhances mitochondrial fat oxidation, and it's going to do a couple things that are going to help improve the energetics of your training session. What it really does is it helps with fat oxidation, so you're able to use a little bit more fat as an energy source, and it can be very glycogen sparing. Now, depending on whether I'm lifting heavy or rolling hard will determine how much L-Carnitine I'm going to be taking. And the main reason why it needs to be injectable is because oral L-Carnitine, it's awesome, but it only has about a 14 to 18% absorption rate, which is kind of a bummer. That's not a lot. So for me personally, I'll take around 300 milligrams of injectable L-Carnitine before jiu-jitsu. If I wanted to get the exact same amount of L-Carnitine, but taking L-Carnitine powder, that would be a lot of powder, and I don't feel like doing that. The other thing is that it takes a while to digest. And I'd much rather just, within a half hour before I go to jujitsu, take the intramuscular L-carnitine and be ready to go. So L-carnitine is great. It's going to help improve your ability to have a little bit greater energy. It's going to spare some of that glycogen. It's great because it's also going to help remove waste products from the mitochondria and, like I said, preserve muscle glycogen. So you can almost think of it as like, imagine you're building a fire and you have the easily burning stuff, like a bunch of twigs and sticks, and then you got the big logs. Imagine you had someone start that fire and it was burning really, really, really fast, and you had someone standing off to the side and they just kept putting more logs on there, more logs, more logs, more logs. So you had a consistent flow of wood going into that fire. The fire didn't burn out, and then you had to wait, chop down some more trees, get some more logs, and then start the fire all over again. That's a very oversimplified way of describing what L-carnitine does. And for me, when I use it at jiu-jitsu, I definitely feel the benefit of having greater energy. And not just I feel like I can move a little bit more without getting as fatigued, and I can push a higher pace without feeling as fatigued, but I also feel like I'm recovering a lot faster between training rounds. And so for me, if I know that I'm going to have a roll hard session, like lift heavy, roll hard, everything that roll hard represents, having L-carnitine is really helpful because it does help with that fat oxidation. Using that a little bit more as an energy source helps remove some of that cellular waste, and it's glycogen sparing. So if you have carbs in your system and your muscles are full of glycogen, you're not going to burn yourself out using all that glycogen right away. You can save some of that, kind of prolong the point at which you would need to use that in those grappling exchanges and in that grappling training session. I do take a little bit of L-carnitine before my workouts, and there's a couple products that I use that are combinations of L-carnitine and other supplements, and I'll talk about those in a second. But L-carnitine is great. You could use it before when you're lifting, like doing a bodybuilding workout. The only time I wouldn't suggest using it in the gym is if you're focused on really, really high intensity, short duration bouts of a lot of glycolytic work, or you're doing sprint intervals that are only about 30 seconds in length, and you're going to be resting for 90 seconds to 2 minutes. What's awesome about L-carnitine is that it's helping your body become more efficient at using fat as an energy source. However, if your training sessions are focused on getting better at using glucose or glycogen as an energy source, you don't want to use L-carnitine to get in the way of that process. So it's really important that you look at what training sessions you're doing and what is the intent of those training sessions. So that way you don't have any, you don't have things crossing over each other, and I don't want to say canceling each other out because I don't really think that's what's going on, but you just want to try to be as intelligent as you can and as intentional as you can. That's probably a better word. As intentional as you can with what you're using L-carnitine for, as well as all of these other supplements. So, for example, jiu-jitsu's L-carnitine has a great use for jiu-jitsu because those training sessions are pretty long, 60 to 90 minutes. It's a mixed energy domain sport, so there are going to be times where you do need to, tap into some of those more glycolytic energy systems where you're burning fuel really, really fast. You got to be twitchy, you got to be explosive, but you also need to have the energy to roll for 6 to 10 minutes for a full training round and then quickly recover and then hit it again. So all that being said, L-carnitine is great, and there's no real issues with taking it as far as I'm aware of. I mean, you do have to take it intramuscularly, so you do need to be careful and not be a dingus when you do that. But yeah, L-carnitine is great. That's part of my pre-training stack. The next thing that I use in combination with L-carnitine is Citicoline. So Citicoline is one of the building blocks for acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter that helps with mental sharpness, mental clarity. That can be a big driver for a lot of the quick and very fast and explosive movements that you do as an athlete. So you do kind of get like both ends of that spectrum. You have the L-Carnitine helping with the fat oxidation and glycogen sparing, have the Citicoline kind of working a little bit more on the brain side, helping you be a little bit more mentally focused, helping improve the communication between your brain and your muscles to fire fast and be explosive when you need to be explosive. So combining those two, L-Carnitine and Citicoline, can be great. I should also mention, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, if I mention any brand names or any companies that create some of these products that I use, just to be fully transparent, none of these brands sponsor the podcast, but I am friends with a lot of the owners and a lot of the people that work within those companies. So it's great that this platform has helped me meet a lot of cool people and learn from a lot of cool people. A lot of people over the years have sent me free stuff, and I've bought and invested a lot of money into a lot of these different supplements, so to speak. So all that being said, I just want to be as transparent as possible. If I name drop a brand or list a brand that I prefer for a certain compound or a certain supplement, just know that they're not sponsors of the podcast, but I am friends with some of these people. I'm not going to say which companies I'm friends with and which companies I'm not, but I'll just leave it at that. So when it comes to combining L-Carnitine and Citicoline, there's one product in particular that I'm a big fan of called Nectar, and that's from a company called Better Through Biology. What's great about that is they just put those things together in one solution, so that way it's just one injection and you don't have to do two, which anytime you can cut down on the number of injections you're going to do, that's a good thing, at least in my opinion. And so when you have the L-Carnitine and Citicoline together, like I said, you do get kind of both ends of that spectrum. You have something that's going to help you when you need to be explosive. You have something that helps you when you need to have prolonged energy or have more energy for some of those prolonged bouts of physical activity and for some of those longer training sessions. Now, the next thing that I take as part of this is only part of my pre-workout. I don't typically take this before jiu-jitsu, but that's going to be intramuscular phosphocreatine. So we've all heard about creatine monohydrate. This is kind of in the same family, so to speak. And really what this does is it helps quickly replenish ATP, which is kind of the main energy fuel source or primary energy source for your cells. And so if you take that intramuscularly, it's going to help kind of turn over ATP a little bit faster, help you have a little bit more energy during your workouts, which is awesome. I will say though, with this, I wouldn't say it's super necessary. Like to me, like I'm trying to get as much as I can out of everything that I'm doing. So if I'm already supplementing with creatine monohydrate and I'm taking some intramuscular phosphocreatine to help my training sessions, that's great for me. But this isn't something that I would necessarily suggest for everybody. If you want to venture down that road, that's great. But like I said, it's within the same creatine family. That's not to say that they're identical in what they do, but I'd say you could go without taking intramuscular phosphocreatine and probably be just fine. But really what it does is it helps with the production of ATP, which is your cell's kind of main energy source. Also helps support peak power output, which is great. So if you're going to be doing a training session in the gym that's really explosive or has a lot of neural drive in the sense that you're using like the max effort method where you're not necessarily building up a lot of fatigue in the muscles and getting a crazy pump, but you're stimulating your nervous system super hard, working up to a 1 to 3 rep max. Some intramuscular phosphocreatine could be great. If you're using the dynamic effort method where you're doing multiple sets and you're trying to be as fast and as violently as explosive as possible, some phosphocreatine can help with that as well. Now, the other thing that it helps with is that it can help reduce recovery time between high intensity bouts. So if you have multiple sets, like you're doing multiple sets of box jumps or multiple sets of speed bench press, this could help you recover a little bit faster between those sets. For jiu-jitsu athletes, I would say that when it comes to explosiveness, you do want to be explosive, but you also want to be explosive while in a state of fatigue. And so, like I said a little bit earlier, you want to make sure that you're being intentional with how you're using each of these different supplements and each of these different compounds. So if you're going through a training block or a training phase where you're really working on your repeat sprint ability, you're working on your capacity to maintain a really, really high hard output with minimal rest. You probably don't want to do everything you can to leverage recovering faster with a bunch of extra supplements. You want to try to train your body's natural ability to recover and then be explosive while under fatigue. That being said, if you're just trying to drive up as much explosiveness as possible, you're not really worried too much about repeat sprint ability, go ahead, like add in some phosphocreatine in there to really try to get as much as you can out of those bouts of explosiveness in the middle of your workout. So, and I hope that makes sense. And if you guys have questions about any of these things, please drop them in the comments below. I try to answer as many questions as I can here on YouTube and on Spotify. But phosphocreatine is something I use only for my workouts, not for jujitsu. Now, the other thing that I use in my workouts is intramuscular ATP. So I do take a product, it's another product from Better Through Biology called Iridescence, and it's a whole combination of a whole bunch of stuff. It has L-Carnitine, Citicoline, phosphocreatine, ATP, dimethylglycine, and bicarbonate, all wrapped in one. So, and that's one of the supplements that I take before I lift. So when we're talking about phosphocreatine, when we're talking about ATP, and when we talk about dimethylglycine and bicarbonate, those are all in that one combination product that I take right before I lift, which I don't take before I go to jiu-jitsu. Before I go to jiu-jitsu, it's just the L-Carnitine, the Citicoline, and then there's one other thing that I'll mention in a little bit. But next on the list is ATP, which, like I said, is the primary energy source for the cell. And injectable ATP can help provide immediate energy and really help support some of those more high intensity, maximal effort bouts of physical activity. That doesn't mean it's only going to be great for the max effort method, but anytime you're pushing as hard as you can on either a really, really heavy lift or a really, really fast lift or a short duration sprint or like a short duration conditioning exercise, having injectable ATP is going to help provide more energy for those types of activities, which can be great. Now, the thing with the iridescence product that I take in the morning, the reason why I don't take it for jiu-jitsu is because I did find that it kind of messed with my sleep a little bit. I felt like it was really hard for me to fall asleep. And in my mind, this is just my hunch. I don't know if this is 100% true of what's going on in my body, but I feel like having the ATP, which is like kind of just like getting raw energy, that if I didn't completely waste myself at jiu-jitsu, I felt like I still felt kind of antsy and amped up after training. It was just hard for me to relax and get to bed. If I take it in the morning, or if I take the iridescence product in the morning, which has the ATP and the phosphocreatine, as well as carnitine, choline, and dimethylglycine and bicarbonate, if I take all that in the morning, the jittery, not the jitteriness, it's not jittery, but like the antsy feeling of feeling like fired up and ready to go, not wanting to go to sleep, that's perfect for taking it in the morning. I don't know if anyone else has had that experience when taking injectable ATP, but that's just been my experience. So let's see. For ATP, some other things on here: it improves muscular performance, can help with strength, help with short duration bouts of conditioning, help with speed and explosive power, which is awesome. The other thing I found on injectable ATP is that it can also help with oxygen and nutrient delivery, which can, by extension, help with your overall endurance. Anytime you can have better oxygen deliverability and better nutrient deliverability through your cardiovascular system, that's going to help your overall endurance. When we talk about nasal breathing, or I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast, pretty sure we have, but in case we haven't, when we talk about nasal breathing, one of the things that I believe makes nasal breathing so powerful for grapplers is that it helps with oxygen deliverability to the working muscles. It's a more efficient way to breathe. You're able to get in plenty of oxygen. You're able to get in a good ratio of oxygen to CO2. You're not offloading too much CO2 when you exhale. And that, by extension, can help with your overall endurance and your overall conditioning. And ATP, in a ways, can help with nutrient deliverability and better oxygen deliverability as well. And the last thing here on ATP, while I check my notes, is, it does play a role in brain energy metabolism. So when I was doing research on injectable ATP, they did say that could potentially support some cognitive functions. Um, I I haven't taken ATP on its own and citicoline on its own. I've only taken citicoline with nectar or citicoline with L-Carnitine and citicoline with ATP. And both times I felt very mentally sharp and I felt like I had good focus in my training session. So I can't really say which one's better for cognitive function, whether that's only ATP or only citicoline. But I have found that when I take both of those, and whether in combination with L-Carnitine or in combination with ATP, your boy's focused up and feeling pretty good. So next on the list is dimethylglycine, or DMG. DMG improves oxygen utilization and helps delay fatigue by enhancing your aerobic metabolism. So it's going to support your body's ability to utilize oxygen more efficiently, and it's also going to help with the production of creatine and phosphocreatine. So when you have some of those higher intensity, shorter duration bouts of physical activity where you're working much more in that phosphocreatine energy system, dimethylglycine, or DMG, is going to help with that. If you're doing training sessions that are a little bit longer, or the bouts of physical activity are a little bit longer, it's going to help with oxygen utilization for those types of activities as well. So it could be a great endurance supplement. I mainly use dimethylglycine for my workouts, but I have used it a little bit for my jiu-jitsu training sessions. But that's part of a different combination of supplements that I use specifically for jiu-jitsu, which I'll talk about a little bit later. What's another thing that's interesting about DMG is that it can act as an immune modulator, which can help your body's defense mechanisms and help improve your recovery by maintaining some of your health during hard training cycles. So anything that you can do to strengthen your immune system really is like a secret weapon for your training, because a lot of your recovery processes that your body goes through are driven by the immune system. And we've seen this happen a lot where, and maybe you've experienced it yourself, where you go through a really, really hard training camp, or you've been training hard for a competition for 10 weeks, and then the competition is in week 12, but in week 11, you get super, super sick. A lot of times that happens because you've been pushing your body so hard and you've created such a recovery deficit in your body that your immune system is compromised. So if you can take something that's going to help improve the strength of your immune system, which by extension is going to further help with your recovery, that's a good thing. And dimethylglycine has been seen to do that quite a bit. Now, the next thing that I take is bicarbonate. Again, intramuscularly taking bicarbonate. And this is going to help buffer lactate and prolong, I don't want to say it's going to delay fatigue, but you're not going to get as much of that crazy, crazy burn in your muscles as fast. It's going to prolong the point at which you experience that. Bicarbonate has been studied for a long time. I remember in high school, I think I was in high school, I was reading some old Tim Ferriss blogs about him using bicarbonate or baking soda to help with some of the prolonging the effects of the sensation of fatigue and kind of helping buffer some of that lactate. The problem is when you take a bunch of baking soda orally, it messes with your gut and it can give you disaster pants. And so in that old Tim Ferriss article, he talks about how he was doing some like treadmill test and I think he was taking like a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons every hour. I don't know. I forget exactly how he was running the test. Anyway, he was running on a treadmill and then he just had diarrhea all over the place. And it was a big problem. So, if you don't want that to happen, one option is intramuscular bicarbonate, which is what I'm using right now. So, like I said, it's going to help buffer lactate a little bit better, help prolong those sensations of getting that crazy burn in your muscles. The other thing that it can help with is it's going to help maintain the acid-base balance within your body. And that's not to say that you're not taking it, you're getting way, way acidic, or if you do take it, you're getting way basic. But those little changes, so like when you're doing high reps of physical activity and you start to feel that burn in your muscles, you are building up lactate. And people like to say, oh, like feel the lactic acid burning. What's happening is those hydrogen ions are flying off, and that's shifting a little bit the pH of the muscle or the pH within your body. So you start to feel that burning sensation. It becomes a little bit more of a hypoxic, a little bit more of an acidic environment. And bicarbonate is going to help buffer that a little bit. So that way you don't feel that as quickly, and you can push a little bit longer, push a little bit harder before you run into those sensations. Next supplement that I use, this is one that I only use for jiu-jitsu, and that's going to be DADA, or Diisopropylamine dichloroacetate, aka DADA, DADA. What's great about DADA is that it helps shift your body's energy production towards glucose oxidation as opposed to glycolysis. Glycolysis is the fast, explosive energy system that your body goes through when you're doing really high intensity, short duration bouts of physical activity. So you think about sprinting, you think about lifting weights, doing a really heavy set of 3, even like doing a set of 8. Say you're like using the dynamic effort method where you're doing 3 reps as fast and as violently explosive as possible. When you need to blast through on a takedown or blast through on a guard pass, your body is focusing a lot on that glycolysis form of energy production. When you're doing lower intensity, longer duration bouts of physical activity, your body shifts more towards glucose oxidation, and that uses oxygen to break down glucose more efficiently and cleanly. So it creates more sustainable energy with less metabolic waste. Glucose oxidation has less metabolic waste, but it takes longer to produce that energy. Glycolysis, on the other hand, can get you a lot of energy very, very fast, but it is going to produce a lot of metabolic waste. Neither one is better than the other, but DADA can be helpful in shifting your body to lean a little bit more on that glucose oxidation. And because jiu-jitsu is a mixed energy domain sport, you want to make sure that you can efficiently toggle back and forth between those 2 different energy systems. So if you need to run a blast double on somebody, you want your body to be really efficient at using glycolysis to get you that energy when you need it very, very quickly. If you're going to be holding a dominant position or you're in the middle of a 10-minute round, as your body is creating energy to sustain all that physical activity, you're not doing anything super, super explosive, or you may not be doing something super, super explosive for the entire 10 minutes, but you have to have the energy to sustain you throughout those 10 minutes. That is going to lean a little bit more on the glucose oxidation glucose oxidation form of energy production, and DADA can help with that. The other thing that's cool about DADA is because you're shifting more towards glucose oxidation, you're not immediately burning through glycolysis super fast, you can push a little bit harder for a little bit longer and get a little bit more out of your training sessions, which is awesome. So I think an easy way to describe it is like if you were to do some zone 2 cardio, I wouldn't necessarily suggest using DADA for zone 2 cardio, but say you did use zone 2 cardio, and you can go about, say, like 35 minutes before you really start to see some big increases in your heart rate because you're hitting those high levels of fatigue and you're getting a little bit more into that glycolysis to try to finish out that run. DADA can help you maybe run for 40 minutes or maybe 45 minutes before you start to see a big jump in your heart rate and lean a little bit more towards glycolysis, and you end up getting into those higher heart rate zones. The other thing that's cool about DADA is that it can help minimize oxidative stress by minimizing how much basically cellular waste you're creating by leaning so much on glycolysis. Oxidative stress is, I don't want to say it's like the boogeyman and it's like the worst thing ever, but if you're doing a lot of grappling training, if you're lifting heavy, if you're rolling hard, you're going to create a lot of oxidative stress, and oxidative stress can lead to a whole bunch of issues. And so if we can try to limit as much oxidative stress as possible, or at least the over accumulation of oxidative stress, because oxidative stress is going to be part of that training stimulus. So you don't necessarily want to wipe out the training stimulus because you still want to have your body adapt to the training that you're doing, but you don't want to see this progressive accumulation of all this oxidative stress. That could lead to some issues with your brain, that can lead to some issues with your immune system and make you more susceptible to getting sick and all that stuff. So what's great about DADA is because you are shifting into more glucose oxidation, you're not creating as much cellular waste, which means you're not creating as much oxidative stress. The last supplement that I'm going to talk about in my pre-training stack before we kind of review all of these and kind of break down exactly what I do for jiu-jitsu versus lifting. The last supplement is ITPP. And I should have wrote down the full name of ITPP, so my apologies. You guys could probably look it up. What this does is it helps increase oxygen release from red blood cells to your tissues, and it's going to help improve your endurance and your ability to sustain high intensity efforts or high activity efforts or a physical activity, high intensity efforts of physical activity. What this does is it's really helping with oxygen deliverability and oxygen utilization. The better you're able to deliver oxygen to the working muscle, the more work you're able to do at a higher work rate, which is awesome. So this can be great for grapplers, especially if you're doing really, really long training sessions. There are some things that I'll talk about a little bit later when we talk about recovery supplements that ITPP can be great for recovery because you are helping release a little bit more oxygen and delivering that oxygen, which can help with recovery. The note that I want to say about ITPP is that, at least in what I found, it is a banned substance by WADA. When you look at the WADA, the 2025 WADA prohibited list, if you look up ITPP, and I've done this before, if you look up the name of the full spelled out name of that acronym in the list, it doesn't come up. So you might think oh, it doesn't pop up on the list, I'm probably fine. However, I think this is so freaking lame, but this podcast isn't about, I won't even go there. But WADA does have a ban on supplements and compounds that have the same function as what ITPP does. So I guess they have ways to test for it. Thankfully, 99% of jiu-jitsu competitions don't test for anything, which I think is fantastic. That's the ultimate way to make it fair, is just have it be open, let everyone make the decision for themselves to take whatever they want. But if you are competing in wrestling and you do get drug tested, or you're competing in the IBJJF and you do get drug tested, even though their drug test is a freaking joke, if that's you, you probably want to stay away from ITPP. If that's not you, then you have free reign to make whatever decision you want with ITPP. So all that being said, those are all of the compounds and supplements that I take before I train. Now, the final list of supplements that I take before I lift are going to be caffeine, electrolytes, L-Carnitine, Citicoline, Phosphocreatine, ATP, Dimethylglycine, and Bicarbonate. Now, how I take all of those, that's a whole bunch of supplements. I definitely would not want to pin myself 10 times before every single workout. But Better Through Biology has a product called Iridescence that combines the L-Carnitine, choline, ATP, phosphocreatine, dimethylglycine, and bicarbonate all together in one solution. So it makes it really easy just to pin yourself once with that pre-workout, or at least that's what I do, about 15, 30 minutes before I leave for the gym. And then I can get the benefit of all of those, and they have it all measured out in specific ratios for all of those things. Now, the things that I take specifically for jiu-jitsu, there is a little bit of a crossover. So I still have my caffeine before I go lift, before I go to jiu-jitsu. At least those morning training sessions, I don't drink any coffee or take any caffeine before the evening sessions. But if it's a morning session like today, definitely having some espresso, still having my electrolytes. I use Better Through Biology's Nectar product, which is a combination of L-Carnitine and Citicoline, so I take both of those. And I also occasionally, not for every jiu-jitsu training session, but I'd say probably 75% of my training sessions, I do take some DADA as well. And the combination of the L-Carnitine, Citicoline, and DADA, I feel freaking fantastic at jiu-jitsu. My energy feels on point. My gas tank feels, unbreakable. My ability to recover between training hard sparring rounds is probably the biggest benefit that I've seen out of using those three together. Mainly because, like, we all know what it's like if you're going to an open mat and you're going to roll for 90 minutes straight and you got like 6 minute round after 6 minute round after 6 minute round. Sometimes like the timer ends and then you only got like 30 seconds to find a partner before they start the clock again. And that 30 seconds, like, you're trying to recover as much as you can in those 30 seconds. And for me, I found that maybe I won't be 100% fully recovered within those 30 seconds, but I feel much more recovered when I have taken L-Carnitine, Citicoline, and DADA pre-jiu-jitsu versus when I haven't done that. And the other thing I should say too, I've been using pretty much all of these things for over a year. I haven't been using ITTP or ITPP consistently for a year, and I think that's the only one that I haven't been using for a year. But anyway, I've been using them for quite a while, and I've seen sustained results from using these things for quite a while, which has been great. Hey, real quick, I wanted to pause the podcast and tell you about the Strength Matrix training app and our free training program called Grappler Accelerator. This is a complete training program that covers all of your needs to help you get started on becoming the best grappling athlete that you can be. Everything from a full strength and conditioning training program, a simple and clean diet guide, recovery protocols, a super sleep toolkit, and a bunch of other dope stuff to help you lift heavy and roll hard. There's already over 1,000 grapplers that have downloaded this training program and gotten started on enhancing their grappling athleticism, and you can be the next. To download this training program today, just go to thestrengthmatrix.com/grappler or click the link in the description below. Now, back to the podcast. Those are the pre-lifting, pre-jiu-jitsu supplements that I take. Now let's talk about intra-workout. Now, this really is just intra-workout or intra-lift because for me personally, I don't want to be drinking anything while I'm at jiu-jitsu besides water. I don't want the bubble guts. I don't want to throw up on anybody if they put me in Neon Belly. That would be a bummer. So this is just for my workout. That's not to say like you can't mix electrolytes and stuff in your water at jiu-jitsu, but I wouldn't consider electrolyte water as like an intra workout specific drink or whatever. Anyways, so once I take all that stuff before I leave for the gym, I go to the gym with my intra-workout shake. And the main goal of the intra-workout shake, which is something I talked about in some of the nutrition episodes, is just to help provide me with a little bit more energy and a little bit more fuel to finish that training session strong, as well as quickly kickstart the recovery process before I move into my jiu-jitsu training session a couple hours later. When you're doing multiple training sessions throughout the day, so if you lift heavy in the morning and then roll hard in the afternoon, the goal should be to like hit that workout hard in the paint and then maximize your recovery between the last rep you do in that workout until the very first round of jiu-jitsu starts. Try to maximize your recovery max your recovery in that window. And an intra-workout shake can help with that because you're getting a little bit of a head start on replenishing some of those nutrients. Like I said in some of the nutrition episodes, if you're only doing one training session a day, you probably don't need an intra-workout shake unless your workouts are consistently 75 minutes to 90 minutes or even longer. If you're working out for an hour, your pre-workout meal is going to fuel you just fine for those 60 minutes. Once you kind of cross over the 75-minute mark, you're kind of flirting with the idea of, I might want to use an intra-workout shake. If your training session's 90 minutes or longer, then I would say like it's a pretty good idea to have an intra-workout shake. What I put in my intra-workout shake is 25 grams of whey protein. So this just delivers fast-absorbing amino acids to help kind of prevent some of that muscle breakdown within the workout. I shouldn't say prevent muscle breakdown because you are like creating a little bit of breakdown within the workout yourself, but you don't want to create so much breakdown that you're shooting yourself in the foot is what I should say. So having a little bit of whey protein in there can kind of help with that. Plus, if you're, lifting heavy and rolling hard in the same day, having that fast digesting, easily consumable protein right as your workout is ending, that's really going to help with that recovery process between the workout and the jiu-jitsu session. Next thing that I put in there is highly branched cyclic dextrin, or HBCD. And this is a really fast digesting source of carbohydrates. It's really powdery. It mixes great with, like, I just put it all in the same shaker. So when I put my protein powder in there, put the cyclic dextrin powder in there, put water and some orange juice, and it mixes really, really well. What's great about highly branched cyclic dextrin is that it has a high molecular weight and low osmolality, which basically means you're going to be able to digest it very, very quickly without like a whole bunch of bubble guts and all that stuff. Anytime you have carbohydrates into workout, you want to try to have as minimal digestional distress as possible, because no one wants the bubble guts when they're trying to max out on squats. Like, you're just going to end up getting disaster pants, and that would be bad. So all that being said, highly branched cyclic dextrin is great. It's tasteless, I guess. I mean, like, it has a taste, but it's not flavored. So usually for me, like, I put orange juice, water, put like 8 ounces of orange juice and 12 ounces of water, and then I put my whey protein and my cyclic dextrin just to help it taste a little bit better while I'm drinking it during my workout. All right, next thing I put in there is creatine monohydrate. And creatine, we've talked about before with intramuscular phosphocreatine, but it's also a good idea to have some oral creatine monohydrate as well. That's going to help improve ATP production, cellular hydration. It's going to help with your strength output. It's going to help a little bit with your conditioning output, or some of those higher intensity bouts of conditioning. What's really interesting about creatine, and I haven't done enough research on this to speak super confidently, but I'll mention it anyways. People have heard for years, like, yeah, 5 grams of creatine every single day, boom, that's, like, you're good to go. And yeah, that makes sense. Like, you're going to saturate the creatine stores within your muscles after a couple of weeks, or maybe not a couple of weeks, maybe after a week and a half. And that's going to help your workouts a little bit. If you miss a day taking 5 grams, it's not a huge deal, but it's just a good habit to be in. One thing that I think is interesting is that there's a lot of people, guys like Alex Keekle, Jake Benson, Mark Bell. I know Mark and Ensima were both talking about like taking a lot more creatine, like 20, 30 grams of creatine a day through those creatine gummies. But some people can handle a lot more creatine and get a lot more of the same benefits of taking creatine when they go much farther beyond 5 grams. So for some people, if 5 grams is good, 10 grams is great, 15 grams is even better. So that would be kind of an experiment you'd have to run on yourself. You kind of just want to, like, every week maybe add 5 grams until you start to experience some digestional issues. For me currently, I put 10 grams of creatine in my intra-workout shake, and then if I remember, I usually have about 5 grams after all of my training is done for the day. The other thing that's cool about creatine is that there's been some research coming out about how creatine can be great for your brain health, especially if you're recovering from a TBI or a concussion. I don't have specific protocols on that, but I did think that was interesting to mention in there. So that shake is what I drink during my workout. Once my workout ends, then I immediately shift into all the supplements that I take post-workout to really help with nutrient absorption and recovery from training. So there's a product that I like called Max Uptake. This is also created by Better Through Biology. All right, I should have mentioned with whey protein. The whey protein I use is just BPN whey protein. It's actually a little bit of a combination. I think it's like 80% whey, 20% casein, I think. But I just use BPN whey protein, BPN creatine monohydrate, and then I just order highly branched cyclic dextrin off Amazon, and I can't even remember what the name of the brand is, but that's where I get all that stuff. Now, let's go back to talking about post-training supplements, or my post-training stack. There's a supplement from Better Through Biology that I got hooked on a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, called Max Uptake. And Max Uptake is awesome because it's going to help with nutrient absorption and improve your body's ability to take in those nutrients, shuttle those nutrients to the places that need them most. And what I found with Max Uptake is it's really helpful for when you're doing multiple training sessions throughout the day. It's gonna, so like when I lift heavy in the morning, have my breakfast, and then 2-3 hours later I go to jujitsu, I can digest my breakfast so much faster. I feel like I'm more recovered because I'm replenishing those nutrients, and all those nutrients are going to where they need to go. So that way I feel full, not full like Thanksgiving dinner full, but feel full, like my muscles feel full. I don't feel depleted, and I'm ready to go get after it at jujitsu. Max Uptake has a few different supplements all combined in these little capsules. One of those is chromium picolinate, and chromium picolinate is can help potentiate insulin action and help facilitate improved glucose uptake into your cells. So you're going to be able to take in glucose more efficiently and more effectively, which if you can do that post-training, that's awesome. That would be the best time to do it. And some of the research that I found on this, it says that it can aid in maintaining stable blood sugar levels during and after intense training sessions, and can help enhance energy availability and reduce fatigue. So for me personally, when I've taken Max Uptake, I've definitely felt that. I definitely feel like helps me recover a little bit faster, helps diminish some of the fatigue I have after a hard training session in the morning, especially if I have another hard training session a couple hours later. The next thing in Max Uptake is berberine. Some of you may have heard of berberine before, and this again is also going to improve insulin sensitivity. It's going to again help facilitate better glucose uptake into your muscle cells. So when you have a really, really hard training session in the gym, you're using a ton of muscle glycogen to fuel that training session. If you're gonna lift heavy and roll hard in the same day, your goal after your workout should be to replenish as much muscle glycogen as possible, so that way you feel full and have plenty of energy to go roll hard at jiu-jitsu. And I found that Max Uptake can be really helpful in doing that, and berberine is one of the things that contributes to that. The other thing that I found on berberine that is really cool is that berberine has been associated with improvements in lipid profiles, including reductions in total cholesterol, triglycerides, contributing to overall cardiovascular health, which is a vital aspect for endurance and recovery. So what's cool about that is if you're able to improve any aspect of your cardiovascular health, that is going to have, in some ways, like direct and indirect benefits for your overall recovery. That's not to say that berberine is like the ultimate recovery hack, but if you look at any supplement, if you look at any compound, it's important to remember that there are primary functions and benefits, there are secondary functions and benefits, and there are tertiary functions and benefits. And when you're getting into supplements, or you're getting into looking at these different performance enhancing compounds that can help you be a better grappling athlete, you don't just want to throw the kitchen sink at yourself and just take everything you possibly can. You want to look at, okay, what is each thing doing? What's the primary thing that it's doing? What's the secondary thing that it's doing? What's the third or tertiary thing that's doing? Then based off of that, you can start to see like, okay, how do all of these things work together and help it improve my performance on the mat? So I say all that because if you just said like, oh, does berberine help with recovery? Google would probably say like, yeah, berberine helps with recovery and cardiovascular health. It's like, yeah, it does do that, but it's like probably a secondary or tertiary function of berberine, when one of the main benefits, kind of like the big kahuna benefit of berberine, is that it's going to help with better glucose uptake into the muscle cells. So just wanted to throw that out there. The next part of Max Uptake is cinnamon bark, and it's going to help act like insulin a little bit in shuttling carbs into the muscles. It improves insulin sensitivity and increases glucose uptake into the cells. Again, kind of doing a lot of the same stuff that chromium and berberine are doing. The next thing in Max Uptake is glycerol monostearate. So glycerol, you guys have probably seen glycerol listed in some other like pump supplements. What glycerol does is it helps with cell hydration and nutrient uptake. So if you, I can't even think of a pump supplement off the top of my head, but if there's like certain supplements that help you get better pumps by helping with the hydration and helping with kind of getting more nutrients into the muscle, and glycerol monostearate can be one of the things that helps with that. It also, because glycerol monostearate has that hyperhydration effect, it's also going to enhance the transports of nutrients into the muscle cells And because of that, it's going to help with muscle protein synthesis and recovery. So when we think about when we go through a hard training session, we hit that crazy stimulus, and then we come down because we have all that fatigue. When we're in that state of fatigue, we want to recover as fast and as hard as possible. And one of the ways that we do that is by providing our body nutrients, and then our body on its own, it knows what to do, will deliver those nutrients to the different places that it can go. If we can give our body a little bit of a boost to take in more nutrients, get better at delivering those nutrients to where they need to go even faster, that is going to help with the overall recovery process. Again, that's not to say that glycerol monostearate or max uptake as a whole is like the ultimate recovery hack. You still need to sleep. You still need to be hydrated. You still need to follow a proper diet, all that stuff. But these things can help give those bodily functions that help with recovery a little bit of an extra boost. Last ingredient here in the max uptake supplement that I take is black pepper extract. And really what it does is it helps increase the bioavailability of different nutrients and supplements that your body takes in. Now, what's unique about max uptake is that it's not your run-of-the-mill glucose disposal agent. So there's other products out there on the market that help with, helping your body digest and absorb and deliver glucose much faster. But what's interesting about max uptake is that max uptake really works on what's called the CYP 450 system in your body. The CYP 450 system, the best way to describe it is it's kind of like the foreman on the job site. So imagine you were to build a skyscraper and you have all the workers there, but you only have so many materials that are going to show up each day at the job site. So if you have 100 workers, but you only got 20 workers worth of materials, that's going to slow down how much you can build that skyscraper. The CYP 450 system, you can almost think of it as like a taxi service that not only brings more workers to the job site, but it also brings in a lot more raw materials as well. The CYP 450 system also has an impact on how your body, or it helps dictate how your body takes on the strength and the duration of different compounds. So if you take, like when I take max uptake and then drink my double shot of espresso, I feel the effects of caffeine a lot more than if I didn't take it. So you do need to be very careful when you're playing with some of these things. There are certain medications that are a no-go with max uptake. You do not want to mess with mixing those two things together. And you need to do your own research on that and do your due diligence to make sure you're not messing yourself up with something like that. All right, that is post-workout. So like I said, I listed all the stuff that I take before I go to the gym. I hit that workout hard. I'm lifting some heavy-ass weight. In the middle of that workout, I take my intra-workout shake. I come home and I immediately need to start the recovery process before I go to jiu-jitsu. So I take some max uptake, which has all those different compounds in there. Then before I go to jiu-jitsu, I take some more carnitine, some more Citicoline, a little bit of more caffeine, a little bit of more electrolytes, and I smash that workout. Then after jiu-jitsu, I have some more max uptake to help with that recovery process. I don't consider max uptake to be like a recovery specific supplement because those are still all kind of part of my training day, so to speak. So it does help with recovery, but there are supplements that I put in this next category that are very specific to maximizing my recovery on my off days. So for me personally, I train pretty much 6 days a week, almost every week. There are some weeks where, like I don't get that very last training session, but most weeks I'm training 6 times, and that's any sort of combination of lifting heavy and rolling hard. On the 7th day, I always take the 7th day off. And maybe it's not always exactly the 7th day. Sometimes it rolls over to the 8th day or whatever. But usually every week, I try to take 1 complete day off of training. Main reason being is because I think that's super important, not just for physical recovery, but also mental recovery. And with all the athletes that I coach, I have them all take 1 complete day off of training. And it's super, super important. Remember, it's not about what you do in the gym or on the mat that leads to progress. It's about what you do and can still recover from. So when it comes to that one day off that I have, my ultimate recovery stack, there are a few different things that I take. The first thing that I take is glutathione, and glutathione is your body's master antioxidant. Glutathione is fantastic at combating oxidative stress. So we talked about how when you're doing a ton of when you're doing a ton of lifting, you're lifting heavy all the time, you're rolling hard all the time. Just because you're training so much, you're going to be causing some oxidative stress. Now, that's not always the worst thing in the entire world, because you do want to have some of that oxidative stress be part of that training stimulus, but it accumulates all throughout the week. So you also want to make sure that you're taking the necessary steps to not let that accumulation of oxidative stress get so high that you start to run into a bunch of other issues with your health and your overall performance. So glutathione is like the biggest, it's oxidative stress biggest op, if you will. So glutathione, you can take it orally, or you can take it, take injectable glutathione. Thing with injectable glutathione is that is what I have found to be the best way to take it, because you want it to hit the system hard. You want to be able to absorb it as much as possible. And kind of like L-Carnitine, if you take it orally, you're not able to absorb it as much. You're going to have to take a lot more orally just to get the exact same effect of taking it intramuscularly. The thing with glutathione is that it's going to help reduce muscle fatigue. It's going to help reduce soreness a little bit. It feels like the best way to describe taking glutathione is like, it feels like the best night of sleep ever when you wake up the next day. Or maybe another way to describe it is like, if I'm only taking, and this is my own experience, and other people I've talked to describe it differently, but if I were to describe it, when I take glutathione on that 7th day where I'm just resting the entire day, I feel like I took 2 days off instead of just 1 day off. And I feel like not only did I get like just 7 hours of sleep, I feel like I woke up after 10 to 12 hours of sleep. So that's what it helps with for me. I still will be sore afterwards. Like if I really, really smashed myself on that 6th workout and I take glutathione the very next day, I might still be a little bit sore that following day after taking glutathione, but I'm definitely not as sore as if I didn't take it. So glutathione is great. It's also essential for detoxifying harmful substances and protecting cells from some of the oxidative damage. It's amazing for your immune system. So anytime that I travel, I try to also make sure I'm staying on top of my glutathione, because I don't want my immune system to be compromised and get sick. Glutathione is just fantastic. It's great for your brain. It's great for your body as a whole and just overall recovery. I do work with a lot of police officers, firefighters, and military, and if those guys they just got so much stress just based on the jobs that they do, and I found glutathione to work really well with those populations. There's one guy in particular, he's a firefighter. We're training for Master Worlds, and his training schedule is nuts, and he's training really, really hard. And so what we do is, after, I think he does like 3 days on, 4 days off, or maybe it's like 48 hours on, 4 days off, or something like that. But what we do is he has his multiple days where he's at the fire station right as like the morning of his very last shift at the fire station. So we'll have him take glutathione, or at the end of that last day at the fire station. That way it's going to help with recovery from all the stress that you accumulated from working as a firefighter. Then the next day he should be feeling pretty good and ready to go to smash those workouts, smash those jiu-jitsu sessions. Then when he has his full rest day, that one full rest day per week, we add more glutathione, so that way the next day when he shows up at the fire station, he's not carrying all that fatigue that he had from lifting heavy and rolling hard. Glutathione is fantastic for recovery. It's fantastic for your immune system. Has so many great benefits. Next thing that I take on my recovery days is L-Carnitine. I take L-Carnitine on my recovery days as well. It helps with mitochondrial energy, which anything that you can do to improve your overall mitochondrial health is going to be a good thing. The other thing I forgot to mention about L-Carnitine is that it also has some antioxidant properties that also help combat some of that oxidative stress. So if you kind of hit that double whammy with the glutathione and the L-Carnitine. That can be pretty good for your recovery. And it also helps improve your androgen receptor density. That's actually kind of how I first got started in all of this stuff. Was I got some blood work done. Shout out to Merrick Health. I get all my blood work done through them. And I should also say that these supplements may not be for you based on your blood work. So before you throw the kitchen sink at yourself with supplements, I strongly suggest that you get some blood work done, talk with a coach at Merrick Health to see like, hey, like break down everything that you see. Look at all the different ratios between these different things and let me know what do I actually need versus what I could probably pass on. So one example is for me, my testosterone wasn't horrible, but I did need to improve my androgen receptor density. And one of the things that could help with that is L-Carnitine. And that's not the first time that I heard of it, but that was like the big reason for me on why I started taking it, was to help with that androgen receptor density. So that's just a long-winded way of saying that, yes, on my training days before jiu-jitsu and lifting, I take L-Carnitine, and then I also take it on my recovery days. The other thing that I take on my recovery days is Methylene Blue. Methylene Blue has been getting super popular lately, and it's all over the place. The thing that sucks about Methylene Blue is that it's super messy and it stains and gets everywhere. I take these little Methylene Blue, they call them troches or trokes, called Trokes or something. It's this company called Troscriptions, and they have these Methylene Blue things. You just put them in your upper lip. It's better than the liquid because it doesn't like stain everything as much. But if I let it dissolve in my upper lip, it stains my, like, it just dyes my whole mouth blue. And I don't know if that's because I'm doing it wrong or what. I don't dip and I don't chew, so maybe I need to talk to some baseball players and figure out how to stick something in my lip and let it dissolve. But anyway, Methylene Blue is great because it is going to be acts as an electron cycler, which donates and accepts electrons in the electron transport chain of your mitochondria. This is a big fancy way of saying that Methylene Blue is going to help improve mitochondrial health and mitochondrial function. And, if you guys remember from your 7th grade biology class, the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, so of every cell. So if you can improve your overall mitochondrial function and your overall mitochondrial health in your body, that is going to be the tide that helps kind of raise all ships, if you will. That's probably the best example that I can give. And for me, I've done a lot of different things to help with my mitochondrial health. Like I've been doing red light therapy for years. I've been trying to, get plenty of sunlight and avoid things that destroy my mitochondria and all that stuff. But the biggest benefit that I've seen from Methylene Blue is that when I kind of stack it with all the other stuff, the glutathione, the L-Carnitine, on my rest days mentally, I feel great. And it kind of gives me like a little extra boost to feeling really good when I wake up on that very next training day. I also take Methylene Blue for a lot of work-related things. I don't take it every single day. I usually only take about 4 milligrams. And those trokes where I order them from, it's like a square of 4. And I cut that thing twice. So that way I just take just a little baby dose of Methylene Blue. But I found it to be really helpful on my work days. I take it pretty much before every podcast. I take it before long work days. So like some days I'll go to jiu-jitsu really, really early in the morning, and then I'll just be working for the next 8 to 10 hours. On those days, I do take Methylene Blue as well, and I found it to help with my mental focus, mental clarity. I don't feel it doesn't have a buzz to it, which is great. Like if you take too much caffeine, you feel like your brain is just like buzzing and spinning a million miles an hour, and it gets kind of like, I feel like I get a little spazzy. If I take Kratom, which I used to take Kratom, I don't take Kratom anymore, that feels great because I can be like really, really creative. I feel like my focus is enhanced, but Kratom does kind of have some addictive properties that I'm not trying to get too dependent on. With Methylene Blue, I feel like it's a great sweet spot. So if I have like some coffee and some Methylene Blue, once the caffeine wears out, I don't feel like I'm crashing that hard. I don't feel like I need more coffee to focus more. The Methylene Blue kind of helps with that. Now, the other thing that Methylene Blue can help with is it improves the function of red blood cells by boosting oxygen deliverability and cellular respiration. So you can use methylene blue to help with your overall endurance at jiu-jitsu. I haven't personally tried using it for that, but I have heard some people use it for some of the more aerobic physical activities. I've heard even, I think Mark Bell was saying on a podcast where he uses methylene blue for some of his longer duration runs, and then he won't use it for like his sprint work. So, take that information as you will. I personally haven't tried it for jiu-jitsu, but based on the research and some of the stuff I found online, methylene blue could be used for jiu-jitsu to help kind of boost the endurance that you have when you're rolling hard. Now, the other thing that I wanted to point out about methylene blue is that methylene blue is very, very, very highly bioavailable and accumulates in the tissues, and especially in tissues that are rich in mitochondria, like your gut. So it can be awesome to take, but if you take it too frequently or taking too much too consistently, from what I found, it can cause some gut film issues and some digestional distress. So just be careful with that. And then also, because methylene blue, if you're taking it, like what I do is I put it in my upper lip, I put it there to try to get it as quickly into my brain as possible. And if you're doing that, it can mess with other serotonin enhancing compounds and SSRIs and things like that. And you do increase your risk of serotonin syndrome. So same thing with max uptake, same thing with methylene blue. If you're taking medications, be very, very careful. Do your due diligence, do your homework on the primary, secondary, and tertiary effects of all the different things that you're taking, and then try to do your homework on how those things interact with each other and if there are any risks of those things interacting with each other. And next, what I take on I got a funny story about this next one, selenium. So I take selenium on my full recovery days, and selenium works with glutathione enzymes to help repair oxidative damage and support thyroid function. And it's going to help neutralize specifically exercise-induced free radicals. So those reactive oxygen species or free radicals, that's part of oxidative stress. As oxidative stress goes up, you accumulate more and more reactive oxygen species and free radicals and all that stuff. So exercise can induce some of those free radicals, and selenium is going to help combat that quite a bit, which is going to help overall recovery. Selenium also contributes to mitochondrial health by modulating oxidative stress and maintaining mitochondrial integrity during both acute and chronic exercise. And this does say from some of the research that while selenium is essential, excessive intake can be harmful. The recommended dietary allowance for adults is 55 micrograms per day with an upper intake level of 400 micrograms per day to avoid toxicity. So definitely keep that in mind. The funny story that I have about selenium is yesterday was my full complete rest day, and I was on a walk, and I wanted to hurry up and get out the door on my walk. And so, I needed to take my selenium, I needed to take my copper, my boron, my vitamin D, all the stuff that I'm listing in this episode. And most of that stuff is in pill form. So I just grabbed all the pills and threw them in my mouth, and then started drinking water on my walk. And I was just going to swallow them, few capsules at a time. I hate taking pills because I'm always afraid this is going to happen. And my biggest fear happened. I ended up choking on one of the selenium ones because those are, in my mind, those are some fat capsules. I choked on a selenium one, and it wasn't choked like it got stuck going down my throat. I literally choked like it got stuck in my windpipe, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't make any noise, and I was walking on the sidewalk, and I was like, do I gotta run out in the middle of the street and try to wave someone down and say oh my gosh, I'm choking? So I was spooked, and I started praying. I was like, God, please don't let me go here right in the middle of the sidewalk. If there's a more badass way to go out in my life, I'd rather take that. And thankfully, your boy is all good. By the grace of God, did not pass out on the sidewalk. I ended up just throwing up on the sidewalk, and there goes all the selenium and copper and vitamin D. And I was like, well, that sucks. I guess I'm not taking those today. So if you're taking selenium, don't just be careful with taking too much, but also be careful with how you're taking it. All right, next supplement on the list is copper. And copper is going to assist with red blood cell formation and energy production. From what I found, copper is a critical component of cytochrome C oxidase, which is the terminal enzyme in the mitochondrial electron transport chain. And this is going to help with ATP production. It's going to influence some of the processes that contribute to endurance and other parts of your athletic performance. Really, a lot of these things are all kind of saying a lot of the same stuff, which is it's going to help improve mitochondrial function and or it's going to help improve combat oxidative stress, which is why it's so important for your overall recovery. I will say with copper, this has only happened to me a couple times, but I do not suggest taking copper on an empty stomach because, at least for me, and I've heard some other people talk about this too, it can cause quite a bit of nausea. So typically what I do on my recovery days is first thing in the morning, I'll take my injectable glutathione and my injectable L-Carnitine. Occasionally I'll take some injectable ITPP, but we'll talk about that in a second when it comes to recovery. I take all the injectable stuff first. Then I have my breakfast, my coffee, and all that stuff. Once I have some food in my system, then I take all the capsules because taking copper on an empty stomach, I didn't throw up, but it did like make me feel really nauseous, and that wasn't fun. So last supplement for the overall recovery stack that I take is, like I mentioned just a second ago, ITPP. Now, I don't take this every single week. I kind of take this out on an as-needed basis if I needed an extra boost in my recovery. And again, what ITPP does is it helps with oxygen utilization and deliverability. If we are in a hypoxic state after a really, really hard week of training or a really, really hard workout, taking some ITPP can help kind of combat some of those hypoxia effects. Now, the other time I'll take ITPP is when I'm traveling, just being stuck in a steel tube getting launched throughout the air. I don't have like a whole lot of data to back this up, but I just feel like, you know what, like I'm in a pressurized tube, not getting a whole lot of like great oxygen flow through the cabin and stuff. So just to help kind of give myself a little bit of a boost, I'll take a little bit of ITPP before I go on flights, and then when I come home, I definitely make sure I stack that with my glutathione and my L-Carnitine to help kind of recover from that trip. So the last time I used it, ITPP was, I can't remember the last time I used it for recovery. I used it very sparingly for recovery. Usually, like every single week is glutathione and L-Carnitine. ITTP is just like a little cherry on top. But I will say this, like I saw the biggest effects of quickly recovering from travel when I went to CJI last year. I'm not like the biggest Vegas fan. I honestly don't care for Vegas that much. It's just like way too busy and just way too chaotic for me. But I do love watching great grappling matches. So I went to Vegas. I was there at CJI and ADCC, and then when I came back, I was cooked. Like I was so exhausted. So when I came back, I made sure I stacked up on my glutathione, L-Carnitine, and all that stuff. And I don't think I was using ITPP back then, but for this upcoming year when I'm at CJI, I'm definitely going to be using some of that to help with the recovery from that travel trip. All right, that kind of covers the stuff that's specific to my overall recovery day. The next few kind of miscellaneous supplements that I take are just things that I take on a daily basis for my overall health optimization. Just real basic stuff. Vitamin D3, which is going to can help improve your hormonal health, help improve the strength of your bones, hair, nails, all that stuff. It can help reduce inflammation a little bit. Vitamin K2, which you definitely want to pair that with your vitamin D3. That's going to help direct some calcium to the bones instead of your arteries. It's also going to help improve the absorption of vitamin D3. Also take vitamin C, which helps strengthen the immune system, supports adrenal health. Again, anything that we can do to support the immune system is just going to help improve our overall recovery. And so vitamin D, vitamin K, vitamin C, all of those things kind of work together in that. And then lastly is boron. Boron is another supplement that I really was like, I had no interest in taking until I got my blood work done. And I saw that my free testosterone was really, really low. So I wanted to drive up my free testosterone. I got my blood work done, talked to my coach at Merrick Health, shout out Michael Warner. He was helping me out. And it's based on his recommendation. He's like, look, man, your free testosterone is pretty low. So let's drive up your free testosterone a little bit with boron. And then because L-Carnitine is going to help improve your androgen receptor density, you got the free testosterone, you got improved androgen receptor density. Those things are going to work together to improve in your overall hormonal health. Again, I don't suggest you just listen to this podcast and just start adding everything to your Amazon cart and be like, I'm taking this, and go no willy-nilly about it. The purpose of this podcast episode is to get you thinking and to get you starting to do a little bit of homework on your own to figure out, okay, what do I specifically need for my training goals right now? For some training goals, L-Carnitine may be great. For other training goals, L-Carnitine may not be exactly what you need. For some training goals, taking injectable DADA is awesome. It's like, yeah, that's going to be great. In other scenarios, you might want to focus a little bit more on injectable phosphocreatine and ATP. And I would honestly go and say that if you're lifting heavy and you're rolling hard, the things that I would recommend for pretty much everybody would be glutathione. I would recommend L-Carnitine for just about everybody, but you would need to be very specific with how you're using it. Creatine, I'd recommend for everybody. Whey protein, recommend for everybody. Electrolytes would recommend for everybody. Everything else could be kind of on an as-needed basis or just depending on what your overall training goals are. But that pretty much covers all of the supplements and all of the compounds that I take. I strongly suggest you check out a company like Merrick Health, or you can even go to my website and check out one of my consults through the Strength Matrix Optimus coaching program. You can order a consult there, or you can go to Merrick Health and order a consult through them. And with the Optimus coaching program, whether you're doing the Optimus Pro or Optimus Start, with Optimus Start, that's my main consult training program, so to speak. So you get a full blood panel from Merrick Health. We're going to jump on Zoom. We're going to go over everything. Once you get your results from Merrick Health, you're going to have your own Merrick Health coach that's going to go over everything for you. And then based off all that information, we'll be able to build out some supplement protocols with all the different stuff that we just mentioned to help you get closer to reaching your overall goals and helping improve your athleticism. Plus, I'll be building out a training program for you that kind of takes all that stuff into account. So that way you're really set up to know, okay, if I'm going to start mixing in some injectable L-Carnitine, this is how I know how much I need. If I'm going to start stacking that with data for my jiu-jitsu sessions, now I know how much I need. And you're going to have, the good information on how to handle that stuff and do it safely and do it effectively. So all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for being part of the Lift Heavy, Roll Hard Grappling Club. You guys are my favorite people to talk to. I love doing this podcast. If you guys have questions about any of the stuff that I talked about in this podcast episode, please drop them in the comments below. It would also be really helpful if you're listening on Apple Podcasts to leave a 5-star review. One guy left a 5-star review, and I was like, come on, Doug, that's awesome. Let's go. So if there's more of you that listen on Apple Podcasts and have been enjoying the podcast so far, feel free to leave a 5-star review. And then last but certainly not least, lift heavy, roll hard, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.